All right, welcome back to another video here. Now we're going to get into the good stuff, which is going to be creating and adding custom buildings. So this is going to be now all working within the tile editor. So that's going to be TileZed. So I'm going to open that up. Oh, this opened the last TMX file that I was working on. Now, before we're talking about TMX, we're going to leave this for later. The main thing that we want to do is start creating some buildings. So I'm going to go to Tools and go to Building Editor. This is kind of like a program within a program. This building editor helps to create buildings. For example, there's one building that I've created on, etc., etc. These buildings are going to be what you can then later drag and drop onto your world editor map using the world ed, and then the buildings will appear. Instead of building them tile by tile using the tile editor, you can basically create buildings that you can use over and over again, or rather that make it really easy to edit. The main cool important thing about the building editor is this allows you to add room definitions. The room definitions will affect the loot, depending on what kind of furniture you put inside of these buildings. A lot of this stuff is predefined, the layers are preset, and everything is arranged to make it really easy for us to make buildings and to add them into our world maps. The developers have done this for us, in which case I highly recommend using the building editor. Although I've seen reverse engineer's version of the Zomboid map, which basically has the devs just create individual rooms and then assign those rooms onto tiles that they've developed in the maps. When I've ever tried to work that way, recreating or moving these maps around becomes extremely tedious and annoying, so I highly recommend using this buildings structure. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's start by creating a new building. So what do you want to build? Now I've created a bunch of different templates here. The base templates are kind of these ones right here. I'd recommend just clicking Suburban. Suburban 1 is great. So what to build for your first building? You can copy whatever I'm about to do, which is going to be very simple and small. The homework assignment that I would give you to do in order to get very familiar with this tool is to try and recreate the house that you're in right now. If it's an apartment, then it's an apartment. And if you want to build a house, whatever, the house that you grew up in. Think of a house, a place, a location where you're like, I know where all of the furniture is. I know where all the rooms are. And something that you're deeply or intimately familiar with, which is why it's usually the house or the apartment that you're in. And then recreate that in Project Zomboid. That I have found is the best way to start your mapping adventure and getting familiar with this tool. I'm going to create kind of like a base, something like that. I've already done that homework. I'm not going to do it again. It's going to take a while. The reason why it's important is because if you have a very intimate level of detail where the windows go, where the desk is, where the chair is, it'll help you kind of get your mind flowing as to the needs of houses. Right? And that way you can really start getting building, like, because people usually ask, because that's what I was asking, like, how do people know? Like, how am I supposed to just build houses randomly, like out of nowhere? I believe that there is also a tool that I've never used in my life, which is called the building regurgitator, room regurgitator. That might be able to build houses automatically. I'll explore that in another time. For now, in order to kind of really get going, I'd say build the house that you live in. Cool. So building size doesn't matter. It can be adjusted later as we go. The more space that you have, the less limited that you feel. That being said, don't make it ginormous because that's going to end up feeling intimidating. I think that a 20 by 20, this base value that it gives us is actually a great starting point. If you need more tiles, we can always make it bigger. So I'm going to hit Suburban 1, 20 by 20, hit OK. So now we're here. You may or may not recognize this gray color. This gray color, as I had mentioned in a previous video, means that there is nothing there. Right there is no floor, there is no bushes, no trees, no nothing. It is empty. So that is something to note. So let's get familiar with this tool. I'll walk through the different things on what we're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and close a lot of these things so that they are out of the way. The first thing I want to point out is this sidebar here. This is ISO mode. a lot of the time that we're going to spend in this building editor is going to be used in this ISO mode. ISO stands for isometric. Basically, it gives us that 3/4 view or whatever it is. It's called an isometric view, which is effectively how this will look like in the game. For the most part, anything that is visible in the ISO mode, the exact way that it's viewed, like if things look like they're on top of each other and look glitched or weird or wonky, for the most part, that's how they're going to look in the game. So be aware. Trust the ISO mode. Now, over here, there's this ortho mode. This ortho mode is basically a top-down view, but it does not show any objects. This is effectively a way where, as you can see, I have hall selected here, where we can create rooms and be able to see how they match with one another. So you can kind of plan things out without worrying about walls or rooms or anything like that. You can simply make an entire building by being like, oh yeah, that's the shape of the building. These are the rooms there from the top down. If you hold the control button, you'll notice that it goes red and blank. You can click and drag to effectively delete any rooms there. So the ortho mode for me helps me kind of plan where all of the rooms are, and then I can there build them like that. So if I know that, my house has a giant hallway, the living room is at the end, and then I have like a dining room over here, and my bathroom, maybe it's not that big, but my bathroom's probably like that big, right? The kitchen's going to be at the edge like this, wrapping around the living room, right? So this is how I'm planning, right? Because I'm thinking of my house. I'm very familiar with how it is, and so I start kind of drawing it out. So this is something that you can use to plan. Can you still work using the ISO? Absolutely, right? But it might just be harder to visualize, right? Because if you build things, it's going to put walls there. So if the hall is there and I'm like, okay, cool, and then the living room was supposed to be back here, but if you start overriding the hall, notice like it took those squares away. It became living room. So just be aware, since everything is the same also, I don't know which one is the hall, which one is the living room. I can left click to see what kind of room that is. But again, that's where the ortho view becomes easier to see. This is the hall, this is the dining room, this is the living room, etc. So that's what these two views are used for. I'm going to go ahead and remove this for simplicity. Now this tile view is going to be one that is more advanced to use. I would not recommend it for your first build. But basically, when you look at this tile view, it's going to give you a view of all of the layers that are used by default in the ISO mode. So when you place items, it's going to place them in one of these layers. The items occupying these layers are things that are preset by the developers. That is something that the tile sets that they've created, the vanilla tile sets, have been pre-programmed to fill one of these layers. That way they all work with each other easily, and you don't have to worry about layers when you build with ISO mode. What this is, it gives you access to every single tile set, right, that is available in the game, every single orientation. Now the thing is that unlike ISO mode, the tile mode will place exactly the tile that you select. What I mean to say is if I pick this tile here, now I have wall furniture selected. On the wall furniture layer, it's going to put this oven there. I cannot change the direction. Clicking and holding it will build more ovens. I cannot change the direction of the oven. If I want to change the direction, I must select the different tile, which is the quote-unquote direction that I want it to be. So just be aware that's what this view is. Now, there are a lot of tiles in this tile set in tile mode that are not in the base ISO mode layers that the developers have given you. Now I close that side. If I right click and select tiles and furniture, that's going to be these ones. So for example, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, location, entertainment, that's actually something gallery, right? There's going to be some statues that I actually recreated. That's a bad example. Let's say a church. These are going to be tiles that were given by the developers. When I select an object, I could pick this chair icon, place furniture, to go ahead and place furniture. If I click and hold, I can move the furniture around. Now, sometimes, right, or rather a lot of times, the tiles that are available here are not all the tiles that are available for that specific type of category is what the word I was looking for. So for example, this shelving, these may or may not be all the shelves, but usually rugs is the one that I like showing. I think that I fixed a lot of my rugs, but if you go, let's see, where are rugs? I think I moved it. You can also customize all this. That's why these are here. But if we go to the rugs here, you'll notice that my rugs look like this. I have effectively made my rugs look good. For you, the default, right, a lot of rugs look really wonky. So the way that you fix or you add tiles is, for example, if I wanted to edit the rugs, I simply double click here, and this is going to open this building tiles menu. Here is going to be all of the tile sets that are available to us. These tiles here is going to be the same list that is in this tiles menu. That's what's important to know. That's where this tangent went off of, right? Is effectively all of the doors that are here are now going to be able to be accessible in ISO, and you can add them here. The ISO mode allows us to place and move objects based on, basically change the orientation of objects by holding and dragging. The tile mode has us pick the specific orientation and specific door image that we want, right? Or rather, a different thing. We also have to delete, it's harder to delete. You have to hold control to delete in tile mode. So tile mode, I would leave alone for now. I would mainly focus on ISO mode. All right. With that being said, that's kind of like the intro to this tile program here. We'll talk about what all of these tools up here do in the next video. And then once we get more familiar with all of the little bits and bobs of this program, we'll go ahead and get started with a building. All right. We'll see you in the next video.